So I will briefly go to the problematic of the workshop itself. As you all have seen in the prompt we have written and the description of the workshop, the basic idea is that the state as a concept is important, still important in international relations. And from the perspective of history of our discipline, it may come as a surprise why even phrase this problem like that, right? Because we have the states, they are doing international politics, right? International scholars supposedly should have something to say, not only about international politics, but just about the relation between those entities, right? Although, as we all know, there is a lot of literature that are one way or another have problem with the state as such. And this is a very important thing, in my opinion, because if we would look at the genesis of care at all about the state, is the state as an analytical, theoretical, basically epistemic concept relevant to to the work of all of you, right? Is it just the intellectual artifact of bygone era where when the neorealists were writing about their billiard balls, right? Or does the state still have a significance for people that haven't got anything to do with the classical or neo-realist paradigms, right? If for example, the critical scholar or find it relevant at all. Do people that are doing research in the field of, for example, foreign policy analysis, right? Thinking about how certain aspects of bureaucracy, decision-making process, interactions between the authorities and their citizens, right? Or the populace they are controlling or governing, right? In context of more authoritarian states. Does the state have any relevance as a concept to all this work? And the distinguishing feature that we wanted for this workshop that was supposed to happen was the proper theoretical grounding of our research. Okay, even if you are skeptical about the state, say something about it. Consider why, for example, the state as an analytical concept is not relevant for your work. This is also important, right? Because if we have a proper intellectual exchange on this ground, and even if we don't agree with other arguments, right, the quality of gaining understanding of what people from different paradigms, approaches to international relations, what do they have in mind when they are talking about the state is super important. Because without shared understandings about certain things, it will be hard to call all of us practitioners of the same discipline. And there is this trend visible, I would say, last 15, 10 maybe years, that the discipline should be thought of as a certain whole, right? That although we are doing research on different parts, we should be able to communicate with each other. We should be able to translate the important stuff that we have to say about social reality in its international aspect to other guys or gals that are doing, other stuff. And because with that we can share our experiences, with that we can enrich each other, right? I really do like to hear people doing research in different fields of international relations, because those things are super interesting for me. They give me new ideas, they give me new outlook, and it's like a fuel for my own scientific work. And basically this is the rationale for this workshop, so we can all talk about things that are important to us, important to our research, with this shared understanding of what state means to each one of us in particular. Now I will go to the idea me and Magdalena had, because initially we were thinking that before the COVID started, we were thinking that, okay, we will hold this workshop. We had a very nice submissions. We read your abstracts. We were happy with your research projects, with the ideas you had, and we find them very interesting and also relevant to this idea for the workshop we had, right? And we're thinking, you know, like if so many interesting scholars have something to say in our workshop, basically what we wanted to do is to ask each one of you whether you would be interested in collaborative effort of writing a book on those grounds, right? So basically we all coming from different points as far as our professional careers, our cultural background, our you know, meta theoretical stances, right? But we all try to share some common understandings of what we are doing through the category of the state, right? And we thought that this idea for a common publication is enough, right? That like a good scholarship can be diverse, but still say something important that can be recognized and understood between different methodological, theoretical, philosophical divides that are among us. And that's just a thing we need to cope with, but also a thing that is like enriching all of us. So so that's the second part. I would ask you to share your feelings, like how would you like to contribute to said collaborative book me and Magdalena would possibly be editing. Are you interested in that? Also, because of this situation with COVID, it's actually kind of useful, you know, because right now we can talk about those ideas that we have, maybe polish them a little bit more before in 1 year we will all meet it in Thessaloniki. Right, this is like some additional thing we can do. We can figure out those two leitmotifs that I alluded to in my mailing to you, right? That we can try to ask additional relevant questions that are not necessarily, you know, aimed at like changing your initial research problem, right? Changing your initial idea, but only like giving it additional shine, so to speak, giving it additional focus, or helping you to draw some new interesting conclusions on the basis of what happened, like the COVID, the epidemics, right? And also, like, since we all have 1 year before we will have the proper workshop, and we also, me and Magdalena, we communicated a lot with the organizers from ASA. We know that there is a possibility for you to change or modify your initial concepts for the text, right? And also, like, even if this modification would be very slight, right? As for the inclusion of those two leitmotifs, namely the anthropomorphism of state and the impact of COVID on state's agency, right? It can be just another dimension that you can implement to your work, because, and this is like another thing I would say it's actually nice or good, is that because we may consider publishing book together, we will have a little bit more space, right? We will be a little bit less constrained with various editorial you know, requirements needed to publish in the scientific journal in our field, right? And as far as I respect and understand why peer review is so important, like in the context of publishing in journals, I would say sometimes maybe it is a little bit dampening for our creativity, for our ideas. And I'm reading a lot of literature lately that are like the edited books, right? And I see that very often people, scholars, right, our colleagues that publish articles, they have so much more interesting things to say when they are publishing a chapter in a book. Really, that's maybe just my intuitive feeling about it, but that's how that's how I see it. So without much further ado, I will give this virtual floor to you all, and I wanted to ask you, how do you feel about the prospect of possible common publication? How do you feel about the initial idea about the workshop? How do you find your work, your possible contribution would engage with this with this subject? And also, what is very important for me and Magdalena is your input, because like I see these webinars, all the 3 sessions, basically as a form of brainstorming, right? If we would all engage in a collaborative effort, it needs to be collaborative. Even if me and Magdalena, we are supposed to be editor of this book, we want all of you to participate also on the level of getting things together. And sorry, because probably I should also say that Magdalena, if you have anything to add.
No. I think I will tell something at the end of the discussion. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so Mehmet, if you can take the voice and basically share with us your input.
Well, thank you. Sounds fit for me actually. And yeah, I totally agree with the book idea. So the only problem is maybe will we be able to get together in a concept? I mean, easily. Does the manuscript do the manuscripts really go around this idea, this anthropomorphism idea, or will it be a collection of something, everybody, everything? I don't know. That might be only one problem, but other than that, if that's not the case, I mean, if we are able to get around the concepts, then okay, yeah, it sounds nice. It sounds okay.
Okay, thank you very much. So now, Roman, what is your insight?
Thanks. I expect first of all from this workshop, I expect to know more about the domestic variables, about the potential observable manifestation of domestic variables. Since in the description it was written that the purpose is open in the black box, and I am dealing with domestic societal foundations of governmental preferences formation. So my expectations would be to find some additional evidence for which kinds of domestic ideas and domestic interests could be identified, which potentially play the role in shaping the governmental preferences, which in turn determines the state's behavior in the international arena. This is my expectations. I'm not dealing with the question of anthropomorphism, but there are some parallels which I think identify, and I will comment on this. Or should I comment directly on this?
Well, however you feel like it, but remember that we will have like a whole session dedicated to that. So, like, but that's good, because that's basically what I hoped for, because like the idea is that we are anthropomorphizing because the language as a system structures us to do it. And like the practice itself, or the phenomena itself, is of course on the level of state, but probably one can look for it on the level of like foreign policy analysis, or analysis how the societal preferences shape the foreign policy of a particular organization. Right. So, but yeah, let's let's not go there, because we will like lose the fuel for the discussion for the next seminar. So now,
let me finish the point.
Okay.
Then,
yeah.
I would then say yes. My vision is that I would gladly contribute to the book by means of presenting my concept, my idea, and indicating in which ways it corresponds to the significance of state, and in which level it doesn't. In a way that, yes, it is important because of democratic accountability of the societal factors before the national governments, and divergences between the states in terms of different issues at stake, global governance issues, and so on. And no, it doesn't correspond. All doesn't correspond to the state level, because the level of analysis is societal, not the state one. In this way, it could be my contribution.
Okay, yeah, but well, that's perfectly fine, because I would say that working on the second image of international relations in this well-known Wolfson taxonomy actually says something about the state as a unit. It does, and like I understand why analytical purity, in an extent, shapes our thinking into thinking like, okay, I'm doing research on the third level, I'm doing research on the second level, but I don't like. I personally don't think this is that much fruitful. This is like the consequence of dominating paradigm of what is scientific, which is the positivism. And like, I respect positivism, I understand positivism, but I am not a positivist. So basically, and this is the opportunity for all of us to maybe try to transcend borders of our own thinking, right? Because our thinking was shaped by the process of our professional education and the like. And of course, like we need to work within a certain paradigm, because without it there would be chaos in our thinking. But on the other hand, we need to learn to reach to others from other paradigms, right? So that would be the case for you, and that would be like very, for me, like it would be super interesting to see how this reaching actually happens in your own work, because then that's basically like the realization of our rationale for this workshop. Okay, thank you very much, Roman. So now, Brizen, please share with us your input.
First of all, I am also not an expert on that issue. I just started thinking about it after your emails. Regarding COVID crisis, there is. I am also in the state of denial, I think, still, personally. Every thesis, every final paper, every discussion in the class or in the department meetings, which are now twice every week, everything is about it. But the more everybody talks about it, I prefer to get into my cage. And I am like, I want to be blind and deaf to this. I mean, because this is a bad nightmare and it will be over. It's just, it almost feels like if I also start talking and writing about it, it will be more real.
Okay.
But I know this is just a psychological defense mechanism, and this is how I'm dealing with it in personal life. And the other, however, I'm super interested in the role of state, concept of state, maybe metamorphosis of the notion of state, not in the recent times, but in all times. And it is the change is continuous. I am not sure that if there is even a kind of fixed meaning for state that we can say, oh, this is the real state, or this was the state. I see everything in a fluid transformation. That's also, I love queer theory in that regard, and I would be interested in contributing to a publication, possible publication, if it is on that, let's say, in post-positivist, we can say it, or interpretative, if it is on that ground, without really reinforcing what we are talking about, but more talking about its controversies or its internal crisis, existential depression it is having, these kind of things. And what I do in my own research is more like, again, what you guys wrote in your text, attributing individual characters to state, and I use Lacan and Freud psychoanalysis in analyzing state behavior, which is another link maybe to your research. But if you know Lacan and Freud, then you also know a little bit what kind of state they see. That's a very, very unstable and permanently in a depression kind of existence. So yeah, hope I am looking forward to it, and I get inspirations from all of you, I think. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Well, Brizen, to be honest, like the question of whether or not the state is a real person, I would say it's kind of important, philosophically speaking, to your to the set to the things that you mentioned, right? Because, like, can we say about the states that they are depressed if we don't mean them as a persons, right? Is it even possible? And yeah, like. I very much respect thinking of Freud, and especially like his continuators of his thought. I very much like the concepts like I know it's in Polish, like in English it would be collective unconsciousness, something like that. That's like a really interesting stuff because. If you would look for like in some other paradigms, if you have like, for example, intuitive heuristics that are added to certain strands of FPA thinking, like there is a common ground, even between like more positivistically minded scholars to engage in a dialogue in people that are reflectivists, postmodernists, or critical thinkers as yourself, and that's good. Like the facilitating of this dialogue is one of the ideas for this for this workshop that we'll have hopefully next year. So that's all and well, and like I'm super interested like in the critical thinking about those problems that you mentioned. So that's from my perspective, that's like super interesting. Okay, thank you very much, Andreas. So now it would be your turn to share your to share your input.
I'm a bit hesitant because I still cannot really see the possible title of the book. If you could have me, Mateusz, here, just to give me one possible title of our book. And I don't really see the possible title of my contribution. And the two are connected. So what would be your idea for the overall title? Because the only title I can think for my contribution is how the state is, or what the role of the state in Hungary is. So what my contribution could be, I think, only Hungary based, if that's a problem, or if that's not a problem actually.
Okay, so I will reply to you, and then I would like to continue speaking about your research, because like I don't see any problem in that, to be honest. Like I would say that the most fruitful dialogue we can have is a dialogue where we are not only talking about, theoretical, philosophical, or, from the perspective, I don't know, history of ideas about the state as a concept that is intersubjective and all. That's all like important. And I am personally very interested in that. But concepts are good and well, and we can talk a lot about them. Actually, people published a lot about on this subject, but without the empirical content, without reaching to the reality as it is, we can talk through ages, but like what would be the content of our talk? What would be its significance if we don't try to refer it to the things that are actually important to all of us, like our own community, the organizations that are supposed to be serving this community? Like, I'm patriot myself, and at some point I would very much like to get use the insights also from these workshops for my own, hopefully scientific and hopefully impartial as it is analysis, of the Polish foreign policy in the end. So and like in the spirit of this of our idea for the publication, proper empirical case, regardless of its meta-theoretical grounding, right? As I remember our discussions, and I remember your presentation in Sofia, you are rather positivistically inclined. Like you like to look for some variables, like you like to operational the concepts you are using empirically, and that's fine, because by doing all this research process, you actually you're actually defining the state. What does the state mean? in your own work through the research methods that you are using to grasp certain concepts of the state. And you know, like we can say, okay, but this would be positivistic, right? You will just test some hypotheses, and those hypotheses will be tested or not. Somebody would come and say, okay, but this is like intuitive operationalization of those factors. So you know, how can you be positivist? Blah blah blah. But that's like this bad side, I would say, of this tribalism that is present in our discipline. Because like if I see a person that is trying to like grasp something intellectually on the basis of the meta theory that is close to him, like the positivism probably is close to you, you are thinking about it and basically to an extent creating a language, an empirical language to talk about the particular state you care about, the Hungary, right? So like if you would be able to add a little bit of this reflexivity, sorry, this is like seriously hard to pronounce, to your work through the concept of anthropomorphism of the state, like, you know, think about, am I really anthropomorphizing the state? Is my research maybe adding to the practice of anthropomorphizing the state, or maybe not, or maybe showing different variables on sub-state level that actually translate into the state behavior is showing that this that okay, like we may speak economically about the state by anthropomorphizing, but on the other hand, like that's only it. This is like a figure of speech, and it doesn't have any substance, right? If you can try to include to your thinking this kind of problems, and they would be just an additional thing that you would do next to your, you know, like research design that you have about your empirical case. Like from my perspective, that would be enough. Like you would just need to think a little bit more about what you are doing, like a little bit more additional, like using additional concepts, okay, and that's fairly enough, because by your own, like by your contribution, by empirically tackling with the particular state, you are also like showing that this category is important for you, even if you are like not treated as a black box, right? But as to your second question, the question of the possible name of the book, like out of the hat, I would say it would go something like that. Does the black box really matter? Because like this title, and this is kind of postmodern of me, could be read in a very many different ways. Like, does it matter for us as scholars? Does it matter intellectually? Actually, can we structure our thinking through this metaphor? Is it useful, or maybe it's not a metaphor? Maybe it is like a label for something that is real, right? And also, like from the more general perspective, the third meaning of the title would be like, does the state matter for the discipline? Right? Because we are the discipline, right? Because we are all international relations scholars. So so like through our research, through our work, like does the state is significant through that perspective, right? So that would be my reply to you as far as the concerns that you raise about your own work, and you know, how can we relate it to the well, leitmotifs of the possible publication. So, like after this clarification, I would really like to hear your thoughts about the subject.
Should I answer now quickly?
Yeah, sure. Like
yeah. Okay, the picture is getting clearer for me, certainly. I'm thinking the topic is very interesting because Hungary is, I think, an outlier in two ways. It is very, how should I put it? It's very easy to anthropomorphize the Hungarian state, because here we have basically one guy who is ruling foreign policy, and that's the prime minister. And secondly, the current government is an absolute believer and very dedicated in the concept of state. So they would like to handle every possible question, problem through the means of the state, which means that actors like civil society, or I should say churches, are not really welcome here, because there is a good old Hungarian state, which is big, which is supposedly competent, and ever since 2010, there is a very strong movement to let the state rule everything in economy, in foreign policy, in the media, etc. So I think there is a, having understood what you are about, I think I could contribute rather interesting things on Hungary, because we are an outlier and an interesting case, I think.
Ask a question.
Yeah, sure. Please go on.
Is it the same thing if the states are led by strongmen, as they are also anthropomorphized, or are they two different things?
Well, this.
They were a little bit different, so I found the link quite interesting.
I would even say what is more interesting is, are they anthropomorphized if they are led by strong women? Magdalena, if you take over,
Yeah.
please go on.
So when you were absent, I've managed to say to all of our participants, don't be afraid of the concept of anthropomorphization. yeah. I think that it's not as bad and as difficult as it may be perceived now. So yeah. I'm also not a specialist in this concept, but we have also the idea of state agency. And I think that we can gather our ideas and our contributions around the concept of the state agency, yes?
Okay, so if I can also reply to what Prison mentioned before I was so rudely interrupted by my ISP provider. So you see, like this idea that you need to have a big daddy of your community, a person that is like this big daddy, and he is the state. Like, this is a really old concept. Like it's in native in the initial form, it is present in classical philosophy of Europe, but actually it also happens to be present in certain political philosophies of other regions than the Europe, to be honest. And that's it. Like to an extent, this is like a question of the relation between how we can say that the group is doing something if the group itself is composed out of the individuals, right? And that's really old and deep question from the philosophy of politics. And I would say that revisiting this question to an extent is an important thing, because like very intelligent people from different epochs and also different cultures were all thinking about it, and yet like the ancient Chinese thinking in the context of Dao, and how like the emperor should be the embodiment of the peace of its community, like very interesting and important statement on the subject, right? So it's not only like our own European I'm saying for myself, our own European thinking that okay, we have the body politic, right? We have the Leviathan, and if you look at Hobbes's book, there is like a picture of a big man composed of smaller human figures, right? And this is the Leviathan. So yeah, like this is a very pictorial depiction. Sorry for this bad English of the problem, Prison, you have mentioned, right? Like, what with the anthropomorphization? Like it have been done, like both in the language itself and also in the thinking about what is social and political, right? I don't know, Prison, do you want to add any comments to that? Like, were we able to I don't know, engage with your question in any way?
Yes, for now I am good, thank you. I think we will discuss more maybe.
Yeah, because like that's what the second panel is about, right? So maybe yeah, let's try not to use all the intellectual ammunition we have gathered right now, so we can talk about it like in this hour or so. Okay, so now I will ask Rebecca to share with us her comments and insights on what have been said so far.
Thank you very much, Mateusz, and also thank you for organizing this workshop about the interplay of the domestic and the international, and also its online version. Let me also add that I'm looking forward to welcoming all you in Thessaloniki next year. And I'm very happy with the idea of a common project, and I would be happy to contribute. But I have some questions. What is the focus of the book? Because if it is about the black box and whether the black box matter or not, so we can maintain the projects or the abstracts we have already submitted before the pandemic. However, we have to make some decisions. Do we want a generic project or a project which is more focused on anthropomorphism or COVID, or both of them, like states as persons during the pandemic? We have to have a focus and to decide our contribution based on that focus. And what I find very exciting is the pluralism of different methodologies, theories, and it sounds like a really open project. And I think this is something good. And regarding my contribution, I would like to, as Andras said before about Hungary, I'd like to focus on Greece and COVID and states as entrepreneurs, and write a chapter about this, wondering if it's relevant to your plan. And that's all for the beginning. Thank you.
Okay, Magdalena, do you want to comment on it? Because like I have a couple of words, but
yes.
Yeah, please go on.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Of course, firstly, I would like to thank you for being here with us, and thank you very much for all your remarks and all your opinions. I think that all of them are very important for us. And yeah, as I said before, you don't have to be afraid of this difficult concept of anthropomorphization. And also, as I said, we can also gather some ideas around the concept of the state's agency, around the concept of the state power or the statecraft, as we have some other concepts. But of course, the idea of anthropomorphization is should be the central idea of the book. Thank you very much, Brisson, for your remarks, and I think that your work must be very interesting regarding the issue of Lacan and Freud as well. And according to my contribution, I would for sure write something theoretical regarding the idea of state agency, but in the era of course, in the era of COVID-19 pandemic. Yes, and I can fully agree with Mateusz that we should have some theoretical background and some empirical cases as well, and that is the whole, yeah, together. Some theoretical aspects, theoretical background, and empirical cases as well. And I think also just like Rebecca, that it's a good idea that the book is theoretically open. Yeah, we have a myriad of theoretical plots here. So I think that that would be a great value of that book. And according to the title, really the title is the proposition of Mateusz is really good, but maybe we can have something more to this. Does the black box really matter? Yeah, we can add something to this. Yes, in order to extend the idea of the book. Yeah.
Also, like in the spirit of the openness, I don't necessarily think it would be a bad thing that, like, if we meet in 1 year's time, we will have like a proper workshops on our text that supposedly would be the contribution to the book, to have like an open contest for the book title. Like, would it be so bad for each and every one of you just say, okay, I know what you are all saying, okay, I understand the idea, this is my contribution, and from my experience, or like with sharing this this well, to an extent, epistemic commune. I know this is like a very lofty term, but it is what it is, in my opinion. Regardless, like I'm feeling that the book should have this title, and then we will just discuss and, you know, like collectively choose the one that we think is the best. And this is like my idea as a reply to Andras was just that, like, you know, just something that I imagined on the fly. And I wouldn't say this is like such, because and also replying to your to the problem with the focus of the book that you have mentioned, Rebecca. Like, if we really have this movement in the book toward analytical eclecticism, if we have a movement to make a global IR, okay, so like let's transcend the borders of our say civilization, our ethnic and cultural backgrounds. Okay, if we have calls to, like, let's be open to people that are thinking about those things like from other perspectives, so maybe actually the best focus for our project would be the plurality itself, because it's not like the, you know, like the anarchism. It's not like we are writing about everything. We are writing about the state. We are using different languages. Okay, we are at the different points inside of the, and this is part of my meta theoretical persuasion, but we are in the different points of the same social reality, and we are all looking at the same thing, but from the distinctively different perspective. And this is it, like, and we are looking at the same thing, at the state, right? But we all have something different to say about it. But still, like, because it's pluralist, because I would say it put itself into those movements, into opening the IR as a discipline, I would say that like we can defend it on the basis of the discourse that is present in the discipline, right? That what we are doing is we trying to be pluralist, not by the you know, not in saying, okay, yeah, we are pluralist, la la la, like we like all of you, you are nice, but we are actually trying to
Anything
do it.
goes.
Yeah. It's not it. Reda have just joined us. Hello.
Hi everybody. Hi, how it's going?
Oh,
Nice. We have very nice discussion so far. So Rebecca, I don't know how this like addresses the concerns that you mentioned about the proper focus of the book.
I'd like to add something, and thank you both for your responses. I'm all in for theoretical, methodological pluralism, global IR, and I couldn't be more happy to participate in such a project. But I still believe that we have to make some decisions. If we go with a plan about and if we write about the state, my first question is this book about the state and the domestic interplay with the international in general, or is this book about the state and COVID? Second question. And the interplay between the domestic and the international during the pandemic or after the pandemic or whatever. And third, is this book about state and anthropomorphism? It could be for all the three, or for just one of them, or two of them, but we have to know, all of them are quite interesting, but we have to decide, or you have, probably it's your project. I'm just trying to be the devil's advocate here. So we have to have a focus, that's my, and to know exactly what this book is about. It can be generic or it can be very, very specified, but we have to know.
Magdalena, would you like to comment first on that?
Yes, okay. So the first idea was that the book is about the state and about the state and the state's agency, together with some ideas regarding anthropomorphization. However, the COVID pandemic has changed a little bit our thinking about this book. And therefore, we decided to add something regarding the era of pandemic. And we want to have the cases regarding the COVID pandemic in the background, yeah? But it's not necessarily for you to write about the COVID. You can write about the state. You can write about unpacking the black box when you want to do this. I think that it's a good idea of Mateusz that the state is the central idea, and the state understood as a kind of historical concept, the concept that is changing incessantly. So incessantly, yeah. So we have different kind of states. Yes, we all. I think that all of you heard something about the resilient state, the hollowed state, the disaggregated state, and now we have the question about the possible return of the nation state, yeah, and its agency, its sovereignty, its new political power, and so on. Therefore, the idea regarding the COVID pandemic can be in the background of your cases, yeah. Yeah, and the first idea, the central idea of the book, is the state and the state's agency, and the idea of unpacking the black box. Yeah.
Or if I may add, to basically engaging through your research with this thesis about the black box, or unpacking it or not unpacking it, because like if somebody is doing its research, his research or her research on the subject of, for example, societal variables that affect in one way or another, through the sheer fact of the methodology this person uses, his epistemic practice of creating a research, writing a text, is actually engaging with the problem of the book itself, this black box. Like, is it even relevant for him? Or what does this person think about, like, how his research and the approach this person takes for his research, actually how this relates to this idea of the state? Because I very well may see that somebody is doing like research in, for example, foreign policy analysis, or on the analysis of the impact of societal factors on the foreign policy, and basically saying, like, I'm doing my stuff, I think this is important, and this invalidates this idea that the state can be like unitary actor. And it's not like and this is like a direct engagement with the problem through one own research, right? That I'm showing, okay, I'm doing this research, I'm showing that like there is so much more to this state that usually is said in like mainstream IR. And basically, because I was able to do this research satisfactorily, this speak for itself as to the problem of the black box, is it relevant or not? You know, and this is the additional push that we want to give you as a scholars for like I would say more meta consciousness of what you are doing and how the things that you are doing actually affects the discipline. Because what is discipline? Discipline is what we are all doing, right? Through our research, through our meetings, through our talks, through our thinking. Okay, and basically this social practice arises from what we are doing. And so basically, like for me, this is a good reason to have a problem with the state as a black box. If I see an interesting research, someone who is doing like his work in the field of foreign policy analysis, or doing some deconstruction of the discourse on the state that is present in particular state, or actually that is present in our own discipline as well. You know, like that. This is this idea of like basically a reflexivity on what we are doing, that is just additional value added to what we are doing inside, you know, our approaches, our traditions that are dear to us. And that's also like important. We are know where we are coming from to this point from the traditions that shaped our thinking. I know that it might sound a little, you know, there is a lot of pathos in what I'm saying, but like this is how I feel about our vocation as scholars. Okay, so right now I will, because Rebecca, we still have 2 more sessions, hopefully, to you know, discuss those things in more more in depth, like both the anthropomorphism and like COVID versus state agency. So like I said, this is just, you know, like a preliminary talk, a little bit of brainstorming, so we can all warm up, basically talk it more thoroughly in the sessions. Okay, so now I will ask Tomek Pugasewicz to contribute, and then Reda, I will just give you very brief idea of what we are doing right now, so you can contribute as well. Although I think about like from this Q&A, you can may have an idea what is the subject of our conversation right now. So Tomasz, please go on.
So thank you, Magda and Mateusz, for organizing today's webinar. To be brief as it is possible. So firstly, my paper for the workshop was about Professor Ludwik Ehrlich, a Polish scholar working in the international relations in the first half of the 20th century, and his concept of state. So the first problem is that I don't know what he would think about COVID and how it shapes contemporary perception of the state role in fighting the pandemic. But still there are some clues how he perceives state, and especially how he emphasized the issues connected with the domestic factors, and that is why I'm studying him, because from the perspective of domination of realist tradition, he's a really interesting person, putting emphasis on in domestic groups and individual leaders in shaping foreign policy. So I could contribute a little bit about the concept of state. I'm not too sure that he was following the manner of anthropomorphization. We could argue about this in next panel. And for 100% sure, I cannot comment anything on COVID-19. I would stick with this topic if you could still accept my paper, because this is part of a state-funded project, and at this stage I do not have possibility to switch to other issues. Thank you very much.
Magdalena, you want to start, or should I? Yeah, please go on.
Okay. Please go
on. My idea was that for my paper, and hearing the discussions now, I think one way actually, and I'm very actually excited to contribute to this projected volume that you are envisioning at the moment, because I think my work, when it comes to understanding the Foucauldian conception of temporality and its relationship to collective identity, because if you think about it, we cannot understand the formation of these internally antagonistic discourses of state sovereignty and the representation of territorial and symbolic boundaries that separates us from them without understanding collective identity. So the discourse of sovereign state sovereignty is often intertwined with the idea of the nation. In nationalism studies, a key concept or a key debate focuses on the notion of the temporality of the nation. So when is the nation? And what I'm trying to do in this paper is to open up a dialogue between this nationalism studies and the conception of the temporality of the nation state and the Foucauldian conception of temporality, which I think, in my view, is whether it's in nationalism studies or in international relations, its relation to the notion of collective identity is understudied and sometimes misunderstood. As Anne Stoller speaks about the ways in which the work of Michel Foucault, when it comes to the conception of temporality, is often misunderstood as he's simply a historian of rupture. What I'm trying to do is that I'm trying to say that collective identities are not simply, cannot simply be viewed in rupture, total rupture from pre-modern, quote unquote, pre-modern social world. And they cannot simply understood as a seamless continuity from the pre-modern to the modern. Foucault's understanding of temporality is that he speaks about the eventfulness of power that, shapes these collective identities. And my hope is to bring up that angle of the ways in which collective identities are formed through that eventfulness of power that at one moment in history constitute what later on can be taken as universal, homogeneous idea of the nation, of the people. So this is what I'm trying to do, to problematize this notion of temporality, of collective identity in international relations and nationalism studies, as far as the state and the state nation is concerned. So that's my contribution, and I really think, and when I read the email, I was very excited to see the ways in which you are opening a dialogue because we come from different angles to address this issue, and I think this is very enriching. And the very idea of the volume is that it can bring different perspective and different voices to address the idea of the state and state sovereignty. So that's really my contribution, and I'm very, very excited to be part of this project.
Thank you. May I start, Mateusz?
Yeah, please go on.
Yeah. Thank you very much. It's very impressive, I think, and it sounds very, very interesting. And I think it could be really a great contribution to the theoretical part, of the book, because as far as I understand, you don't want to add an empirical case to your contribution, yeah. But I think that your chapter or your contribution can be a great summary of the theoretical part of the book.
Yeah, that would be perfect.
Also, if I may add my 2 cents, if you read a good book, a lot of it just drops into your semi-consciousness. Okay, it's very nice that you remind me that it was the Foucault about this, the temporality and the eventness of power, because lately I was boring to death both Tomasz and Magdalena with my idea that the sovereignty came up as a part of historical process where just the people in the late medievality were lost in the conceptual chaos. They were lacking what is right now called the ontological security, right? They didn't have a proper epistemic means, epistemic concepts that were able to organize their human existence in the groups that they were in. And like the response to this crisis was actually the idea of sovereignty, of unitarity actor called state, right? That is like making people, okay, I'm thinking, I'm here, I'm a person inside of the state, okay, now I know what's up. Basically, that's like to, you know, to say it in the plain terms. So like it's a very nice thing that you basically showed me, that I need to return to my reading Foucault like once more. But you know, like this is what it is with the good books, so I can totally understand it. But like also like from my perspective, and you know, like you may or may not add it, but like I will definitely like to talk with you on this subject. Like, is it impossible, how would your reading of Foucault answer to the question of whether this is like necessary condition for the collective identity to form temporarily, like in the, as an event, like as something that is happening? Is it like necessary for this identity to have some notion of anthropomorphized avatar? You know, like this big daddy I was talking. I don't know if you heard it, like the, you
No,
know, this.
I haven't catch that part. Yeah.
Because like for me this would be like a very fascinating thing I would really like to, you know, read about, because like yeah, my own research is like on classical realism shows to an extent for me myself that like this this statement as an avatar of his community have like a very profound symbolic significance. And yeah, and like I would really like to discuss your ideas further, also like today when we were talking about the anthropomorphization. Okay, because like this is this whole philosophical discussion, and also like discussing about this philosophical part of the discussion of the state as a person, right? I would say that you will have a lot to contribute, maybe to disagree, but in this process, like, you know, if we are talking about something, even like other people that are hearing what we are talking, they are learning our language. And like learning this language helps us to all understand ourselves better, like inside of this project. Well, at least this is the my this is my hope about it. And also I wanted to comment briefly on what Tomek said also, like and then we will have I think we will have a break because it was pretty intense session so far. So I would say, Tomek, that like your case basically, like as I understand it, is a case in a history of ideas, right? You have basically a guy, a Polish guy that is trying to theorize, even if it does it, you know, like half consciously or intuitively to an extent. He tries to theorize something about, you know, international relations, but through this act of theorizing, he's bringing to the table all his like tradition, all his engagements with like the Polish history of statelessness, with his intellectual training in one or the other partition power, right? And like through the creation or reading his work on the subject of the state, you can basically say something about, you know, this very peculiar moment, like to refer to this to what Reda said, like it was like even in time when Poland was created, right? And to an extent Ehrlich took part in this event, and like how he intellectually how he was influenced intellectually by this, like like it's hard to imagine from the existential point of view what would a smart person that is interested in international relations but is also like a patriot of his community, what does this person feels the moment that his community actually is getting its own state? No, like what are the feelings of this person, like how they were able to influence like how they influenced his further thinking on the subject? Because like that's that, like this is of course somebody may say, okay, this is like psychologizing, this is like a bad micro history and stuff like that, but like I don't know, like for me it would be super interesting if you can at least like intuitively share with us your insight on the subject, like if you can see the impact of this existential event for this particular person in his intellectual work, because that would be like, I don't know, for me, okay, this is my thing. For me, this would be just like really interesting and enriching to you know, to get your take on this subject.
Could I comment or
yeah, of course.
I saw also Magda would like to
go on, and I will tell something. I will comment later on. Okay.
Okay, so in a reverse. So firstly, about Ehrlich, I have some problems with knowing feelings, emotions of Professor Ehrlich, as he was someone whose character was developed at the end of the 90s and beginning of 20s, and those kind of professors did not share easily their feelings, as his son testified during an interview with him. But still, this is really nice case, because we see as the group of people perceiving itself as one nation was existing for more than 100 years without state, without sovereignty, and then creating state, but still putting an emphasis that they do not create state, they recreate it as it was previously existing as a sovereignty. So that's the first point. The second point for Reda, and that's I'm just reviewing my students' diploma thesis, and if you are looking this interconnection between nation identity and sovereignty, nice counter case from my perspective is showing that if there is no nation identity, like today in Iraq or I don't know, Afghanistan, we do not see as modern, fully independent state as a counter example showing what is going on, not when the identity emerges, but when we see some kind of, I don't know, sectarianism or ethnic politics. Yeah, and last issue, Mateusz, that's really nice point making about the invention on the state at the end of the medieval age, as I think that it was even written by one of the Polish historian of ideas, that at the end of the medieval, people did not understand what is going on, and as this was a case of early modernity, and they were searching for answers, and the person who delivered the answers in reference to the international relations concept was Hugo Grotius, and his book about international law was perceived as a new Bible for new modern, at that time, modern times. Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for your input as well. Spoken like a true empiricist, right? It's hard to get into the feelings of our subject of our research. Okay, guys, like it was a real pleasure to talk with you so far. So I would say let's reconvene in Magdalena. What time would it be?
Yeah, it starts 2:45 to 3 p.m.